All right. Trying this again. Freaking heck. Okay. All right. I don't know who's back, but oh my gosh. No, I did some research. We can talk about it more. I think it's just making the cats used to things and comfortable. All right. Yeah, I fixed it by turning it off and turning it back on. Sorry, my wife was texting me. Oh my gosh. Sorry, this just gets me riled up because there's just a lot of people that are out there that are like Trump is doing this. It's the best thing. It's like if we're using the conversation that happened in the Oval Office the other day, if we're using that as an example. Oh shit. Can you guys hear me? You are muted. I'm a bot. Helper bot. Okay. So, if we're going back to like what we were talking about before. Sorry, my stream pooped out, so we had to start. We were talking about geopolitics. We were talking about Trump. We were talking about Zelensky. We were talking about the situation there. And we were the problem is there are so many convoluted situations about this. Trump was treating Zelensky terribly, and Zelensky was being rude, and it's like you've got two very powerful, very narcissistic individuals. And before you get mad at the way I'm saying that, anyone who thinks that they can rule or represent or lead an entire nation better have a certain amount of narcissism. They better have a certain amount of narcissism. Because what I don't want is I don't want a pacifist. A pacifist is someone who is not capable of showing aggression. And sometimes, as a leader, you need to show aggression. All right? Aggression to protect, aggression to help your country do better. So let's make sure that we're understanding what narcissism is. There are two leaders of two nations. One, arguably the most powerful nation in the world. Another, arguably the most viewed and observed nation in the last 5 years because of the conflict with Russia. There's a lot of attention there. And there's a lot of support for the Ukrainian people because what Russia is doing is wrong. Right? Hands down, what Russia is doing is wrong. What China wants to do to Taiwan is wrong. What North Korea does to its own people is wrong. So we've established that going to war, killing people, like it's wrong. All right? What Israel is doing is wrong. What Hamas and Palestine did to Israel first is wrong. War is wrong. It's bad. It's not something to be celebrated. Now let's put a big fat comma after that statement. Israel absolutely has every right to kill the shit out of Hamas. Ukraine has every right to kill the shit out of Russia. Okay, we have established the rules of war. The rules of war are, once you start shooting, okay, you have every right to defend yourself. Whether you were the aggressor or not. If you picked the wrong fight and they start totally killing you, you have every right to fight back as hard as you can. Now, we talked about that. Here's the problem in Ukraine. You can hate on Trump or you can hate on Zelensky. Both of them are fairly narcissistic as leaders, which is good, which is what they should be. They need to be. Russia is under no obligation to concede anything. In a long-term war, Russia wins. Even if America funds them. If America stops, if they take 2/3 of their budget and of their defense budget, gives it to Ukraine, and we don't actually step foot in Ukraine, and it's only Ukraine fighting, Ukraine loses. They lose. Hands down, they lose. So, if the long-term funding of Ukraine ends in Ukraine losing, what is the point of continuing to fund a war that they will lose? If everybody is going to view brokering peace with Russia, Russia doesn't have to stop. We want them to stop. I think we can all agree. All right? Russia not fighting and Ukraine not fighting would be really good for everyone in the world. It would be good for America. It would be good for all of Europe. It would be good for Russia. It would be good for Ukraine. It would be especially good for Ukraine. They'd stop losing their people. They'd start rebuilding their country. Right? So, peace is the best solution. The problem is that everyone who hates Trump is looking at this as Donald Trump is trying to. Ukraine's been able to push into Russia since having a lot of our restrictions on how they can use the weapons was listed. Okay, so if Ukraine's pushing into Russia, James, that's the question then. If Ukraine is pushing into Russia, not pushing back to get the land they lost, but pushing into Russia, is that defense at that point? How is that different than what Russia did? If Ukraine is taking Russian land, how is that different than what Russia did to Ukraine? We're not funding a war for Ukraine to take land from Russia. Now, if we're saying Ukraine has pushed Russia back to original boundaries or taking land back that Russia once took from them, that was originally theirs, then that's fine. There is an argument. I'm not saying it's a good argument, but there's an argument to be made that technically, when Russia was the USSR, Ukraine was part of it, and so, like, that's kind of the whole argument that Russia has, is that, well, we just want to help the people. So, again, that's fine. We're talking about still continuing a war, James, but what I'm saying is, in the long run, Russia will win. Every time Russia is in a long-term engagement, they win. Because it's like China. They don't have rules that they follow. They don't care how many people it takes. Here's what it comes down to. There's more people in Russia, and they have more allies. They withdrew from Afghanistan because they were trying to conquer Afghanistan. So that might be the one exception. But World War II, World War I, Ukraine, they have the numbers to outlast Ukraine. Ukraine's not going to get nukes back, because if they get nukes back, Russia's just going to nuke them. That's what's going to happen. So we need to take nukes off the table. It's crazy. There were like 50 people in here watching this, and then it just died. Okay, sure. Napoleon. Okay. Um, but that's the problem, is because Russia really does have, in this case, Russia has most of the negotiation cards because they can outlast Ukraine. They know that we're not going to get involved. Russia's not going to go out of their way to attack NATO. Everyone's saying, "Oh, Russia's going to go in and attack NATO." They're not going to attack NATO. Putin's not. He's not dumb enough to do it. The only reason he attacked Ukraine is because of what happened in Afghanistan. Because we withdrew from Afghanistan and abandoned it. And okay, let's give this a shot. Now, I'm not convinced that they wouldn't have tried had Trump been in office, but I think they would have. I don't think it would have lasted as long as it has. I could be wrong, but I don't think it would have lasted as long as it has. Yeah, and that's what they're doing. They're calling in North Korea. They're calling in people from all over. Russia's offering citizenship to the Houthi. You can go check out Habitual Line Crosser talked about this on his HLC Actual. He talked about this and what Russia's doing. Russia doesn't have a problem just bringing in whoever to go and die for their cause. You'll note that there aren't a lot of people that are like, hey, we're going to go join the Ukrainian army and become Ukrainian citizens and join the military to probably die against the Russian invaders. There's not a lot of people that are doing that. But the idea of becoming a Russian citizen and getting out of, the sandcastle hole that's Yemen or Syria or getting out of North Korea, they're all over that. That sounds like way better. If you survive the Ukraine and Russian war, then you get to be a Russian citizen. That's a way better deal than living in North Korea or Yemen or Syria. That's a way better deal. So yeah, they're going to do that. So that's what I mean when I say everybody that's like, Trump's a traitor, Trump's a traitor, Trump's a traitor. Trump is trying to stop a war from escalating. Because if Putin takes all of Ukraine, he then has access to way more ways to get out into the world from a military advantage. That is extremely bad, and then it will escalate. And then the US and NATO and the UN, then they do get involved. And that's not good for anybody. So that is why all these leaders are like, we stand with Ukraine. America stands with Ukraine. We don't want Ukraine to be destroyed. But we also don't want the fighting to escalate anymore. We want it to be done, to stop. That should be the stance of everyone. Why is it so hard for people to grasp? We want the war to stop. No, whether they did that or not, though, James, the question is does it matter? Does it matter that that's why they started doing it? The point is that they did it, and they're still doing it, and it's working. Working in the sense that they're replenishing their numbers way faster than Ukraine is replenishing theirs. And in the war of attrition, which is what this is at this point, it's who has more numbers in the end. Right now, Russia's got more numbers. So we I'm in agreement. It matters in the sense that it's despicable, that it's wrong. But if Russia gets what they want, why does it matter? Russia, for all intents and purposes, Russia doesn't care if the war keeps going, because they'll just keep throwing bodies at the front line. They don't care. As far as Russia's concerned, it's like having infinite lives in a video game. They don't care. Putin doesn't care. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. They wouldn't have used the Wagner group and things like that. It's good. Like it has changed. It's changed the landscape for the way that America trains for wars. Right? Sorry, my voice is getting dry. There are all kinds of great things and innovations that have come out of this. The point is that Ukraine isn't in a win scenario. Even with all of the monetary and military weaponry, which they're not going to get the most advanced weaponry, they're getting what we are willing to and what NATO in general is willing to give them without compromising our own defensive stance. So that's the other thing you have to consider. We fought Hitler because Hitler wasn't stopping, and Hitler stretched himself thin, and that was his downfall. He kept going, and he didn't listen to his military advisors. Putin's not doing that. He's taking it a little teeny bit at a time. Also, Hitler didn't have nukes at the time. They were trying to. They knew that conceptually nukes existed, but they didn't have them. Russia does have nukes. And so if other people do all get involved, again, gloves come off. Using nukes is a bad thing. So that's what I'm trying to hammer down is everyone that's out there, and believe me, like if any of you have ever watched any of my other stuff, if anybody's ever watched any of my other stuff, you know that I am a hardcore. I've got guns in the background. I talk about being the below average Utah dad in the sense that like when somebody starts talking about woke stuff or the, trans women or women, and I'm like, no, that's a dude with a dick. Like I am a very firm constitutional conservative. All right? But in this sense, I am saying I have to put that aside. I'm literally having to put that aside. And I'm having to put aside the leftist ideology because people are too engrossed. My whole point of this entire conversation is that people are too busy with their ideological cock in their mouth to look at this from reality. And the reality is Russia has the upper hand in the long-term war with Ukraine. And because of that ultimately that's the big thing. They have more numbers than Ukraine. Ukraine without funding, even with funding, because of that, Ukraine can't win. They can maybe come to some kind of a standoff, but if they continue to lose people and they can't rebuild their nation and their infrastructure, eventually Ukraine loses. So, brokering a complete ceasefire and establishing, even if it's to the extent like what happened in East and West Germany, if it's a big ass wall with guns and all kinds of stuff and it becomes a North Korea, South Korea thing, if that's what needs to happen in Ukraine, then that's what needs to happen in Ukraine. And it needs to go all the way along the Russian border and all along Belarus as well. Because Belarus might as well just be Russia. So, if that's what it takes for Ukraine to start building up their country again, to get back to some kind of semblance of normalcy, then that's what people should be advocating for. Not continuing to fund the war for Ukraine. Not continuing to support Ukraine fighting. I think continuing to support Ukraine being able to defend themselves, as long as it's just defense. If there's a ceasefire, we can still help them build their own military, but we don't need to be sending them more weapons. We can help them fund their own military and build up that military. Help them build walls. If at that point there's a ceasefire and then we can send in U.S. military troops to augment the building of their borders, that's fine. I think that's appropriate. I think that would be a deterrent to allow it to happen because Russia's not going to pull the trigger if we're over there. But right now, with it being an active war zone, if we step foot in that zone, it adds all new kinds of complications. If NATO countries send their personnel in as war fighters, it creates a problem. And we can't send them down to the front line to build walls. Not now. Russia is under no obligation to turn themselves in. They're under no obligation to give back any of the land that they've taken. Realistically, any land that Ukraine has taken from Russia, they're not going to be able to keep. They can try. I mean, they can try and make that concession that they get to keep the land that they took. What would probably be wiser is for Ukraine to say, well, how about we trade? You give us back some of this land, we give you back some of that land. Any prisoners that Ukraine has, they can realistically go for an even trade for prisoners. But that's really the best scenario. Putin's not going to turn himself in. He's not going to go before a firing squad. Nobody's going to go after him. The American CIA is out of the business of assassination, although sometimes I think we shouldn't be. Like, there was no win for anyone who supported Ukraine, because you knew that, like, peace wasn't going to happen in the first 6 to 7 months. It just wasn't going to happen. That's not Putin's style. That's not the way wars work. They don't just end after 6 months, unless, like, there is overwhelming loss on one side or the other. Which means, again, that it was definitely not a win scenario. Somebody definitely lost really bad. So in this case, there's not a win-win. There's a lost slightly less badly than the other side kind of scenario. And Russia will look like this. Exactly. That is exactly what we'll be seeing. So it's going to have to be NATO that goes in and helps, and we're going to have to fund NATO to go in and help rebuild Ukraine. They might, if it was like the Army Corps of Engineers, James, they might not view it that way. Or if it was like a private American company that went in, a private American company that did that. But that's the danger of this whole situation, is until there is a definitive brokered peace with, like, that will be the win for Ukraine, is we do not necessarily want any of our land back. We want our prisoners back, but we want a ceasefire, and we want to have the concession of being able to have a demilitarized zone similar to what exists between North Korea and South Korea. We would like the following countries to be allowed into the country. We're not allowed, but we expect we expect respect for the presence of these countries in non-aggressive infrastructure and whatever support roles only, to help us build up our defenses in an effort to maintain a non-conflict resolution between us and Russia. That is the best possible solution that can happen. And I was gonna say, if my stream just went out again, I'm gonna get so mad, because that's gonna feel a lot like YouTube is just trying to silence the fact that I'm trying not to, like, hate on either side, but also hate on either side. I'm not pro-Ukraine. I'm not against Ukraine. I'm not pro-Trump or against Trump in this sense. I'm not pro-Russia in any way, shape, or form. But there's not a lot of solutions that don't make it look like Russia is the one that wins in the end. And that really sucks for the world. But that's the way that wars typically go. Unless there is overwhelming loss, like what we saw in World War II, like what we've seen in World War I, like what we saw in the Korean War. Like, there's not a good way for this to look good. As bad as the as bad as, like, people complained about the Afghanistan war, whether we should have been there or not, let's put that aside, because we were there. Like, the reasoning behind it is gone. The loss of life on the American side was minuscule compared to the way that the other guys were winning. And yet that's a situation that we basically just handed over the trophy to the Taliban. Because now the Taliban is super funded, super well armed, like, all kinds of tacked out. Like before, they were a bunch of dudes and like rags and had AKs and leftover stuff that they could find, and they would fight in guerrilla tactics. Now they're freaking military. They're a real grown up military. Are they good at using it? That comes with time. But they've got as good a stuff as what Ukraine has. We've got all of our stuff. And so that is an example of what happens when there is complete and absolute abandonment of something that you've committed to. We've committed to supporting Ukraine, but not by sending in soldiers. There's a reason that the rest of Europe like has military bases and everything. Like after World War II, that we established military bases and a presence, and there haven't been any wars. Well, one of the concessions that Russia has had with every country that's broken off of them from the USSR and became their own country is that America cannot establish a base there. We do things there, but like that is their big no-no, because they know that if we're there, there's no chance in heck that they can get there. So we're not going to go into Ukraine and establish a true military presence. Russia might let some NATO military stuff happen. Maybe. But it's going to, I think more than likely what it's going to be is it's going to be like, it's going to have to be people that they try. It's going to have to be like someone that doesn't have anything to gain from Ukraine building defensive measures. I think that's why Saudi Arabia was chosen. They probably have something to gain that's beyond my scope of like what I understand about the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Russia and the US and Ukraine. But, you know, probably like a good, really a good like neutral in the sense that they're pro-Ukraine, anti-Russia, but they're not interested in getting into a shooting match with Russia would be somebody like Israel or Practical. They're gonna argue. They get on there once those guys get going. They argue every time. So possibly Turkey's got a lot of ties to Russia, so they might be interested in doing it. Like they might be a good solution. India, I could see India being a. I think India would make a better, more neutral solution to that than Russia. Probably not Japan. Japan's got too much going on with China. Not like they won't do Australia. Yeah, and so that's gonna be the hardest part of the negotiations to broker a peace, and is finding a way to make that balance of, well, can we get NATO people in there that are not interested? It's not going to be the UN. And frankly, I don't trust the UN. Yeah. No, we're not going to leave NATO. There's everybody that's talking about us. Like, I know that Trump has said we've talked about leaving NATO. We're not leaving NATO. That's not going to happen. That's not a very good solution either, Ammo. We've been talking about this. I have calmed down now. You missed it. I was dropping F-bombs and swearing. Like, it was very out of character for what either of you guys have seen before. So everybody in the chat, Ammo and Practical are other creators that I've become pretty good buddies with. Check out their stuff if you're into guns and ammo and the 2A culture. I'm a little bit more broad. So I, talking about this or talking about like my kids and talking about kind of politics and things like that. But I only do it on my streams. I don't do it in any of my videos. If you just want to watch videos, no, you can go watch the other one. It was about 5 minutes before I dropped my first F-bomb, I think, Ammo. It was pretty rough. It was bad. So anyways, thanks everybody for being for being part of this. It's more than anything, it's it's this concept of what's going on with social media. And I would encourage all of you, just as regular people, I know there's only 9 people watching right now, but I would encourage you, like, especially if you know people that are super far on the like freaking, yeah, that might have been what got me shut down. They caught up with like by the time I dropped my 5th one, I think they were like, oh, we gotta shut him down. I did put the disclaimer that there was going to be explicit language. I knew that I was going to drop an F bomb. I just didn't realize I was going to drop that many. So I apologize to everybody that subscribes to my channel. That I know I try not to swear, but this is a very heated subject. It's very close to me. I had, like, my dad was a pilot in Afghanistan, and so seeing what happened in Afghanistan, when I see geopolitics and everybody become like this, I keep using the phrase because it's the only way that I can think of to really, really like describe how I view you when you are so ideologically stuck to Trump bad, Zelensky good, but oh, I on X. I'm not very. I'm much more vocal and everything on X. But anyways, my dad was an instructor pilot, so like he taught the Afghani Air Force. He taught a good vast majority of the Afghani pilots how to fly. So a lot of those dudes, like I have inadvertently, like through third hand, sometimes second hand, um, had conversations with them and talked to them and gotten to know them, and they were really decent guys. So when that pullout happened and they lost their families, some of them lost their families, and my dad lost friends, and his friends lost families, and all the terrible things that happened in Afghanistan, that really gave me a strong distaste and distrust of when political leaders say that they're doing the best for our country, because I don't buy that. If you're not on the ground getting shot at, I don't buy it. I know that Zelensky's been on the ground, and I respect that he's been on the ground, but I also know that Zelensky isn't on the ground in areas where he's putting himself in danger. That would be counterproductive. So that's really what it is. It just drives me nuts. So I would encourage all of you, if you have X or social media, if you see people posting stuff like Trump hates Zelensky and wants the world to be invaded, and all these political leaders that are using this as a way to shit on Trump and say that he's a terrible person who just wants to watch the world burn, like, he trying to broker peace. That's not a bad thing. Did he go about it the best way? Probably not. Okay? I don't know. I'm not part of his team. I don't understand what their goal is, except that stop fighting and end the war. If that's what is the result, then that's good. At the same time, like, Ukraine's been fighting to continue to survive so that Russia doesn't completely wipe them out. That's why it's so important to end the fighting so that Ukraine can rebuild. So I'm pro both. I can be anti-Russia and not be pro-Ukraine and anti-Trump. Give me just a second, JC. I know I've got some stuff in the way of my chat. I can only read like 3 lines up. I've got a notification and some stuff going on, and I'm talking about geopolitics. So what I would encourage all of you to do is, when you have friends or family, or you see people that you know and they're really harsh on one stance and really harsh on the other, or really pro one stance and really harsh on the other, or really like vice versa, like, take a step back and maybe reach out to them and just be like, hey, just so you know, you kind of look like you're gobbling the cock of your ideology and you're not taking a look at this from a realistic point of view. Russia has done a terrible thing. We all acknowledge that. Ukraine is in a terrible situation where they can't win in the long run, even with all of the support of NATO and the free world. So finding a peaceful solution is going to be the best thing that they have. Finding a way where Russia doesn't try to continue to fight with them in the sense of that security thing, like that's what we want to happen. And anybody that's saying that that's a bad thing needs to check themselves and like reevaluate. Have you ever? Oh, don't worry, don't worry. I You can go watch the interview that I did with my daughter Andy and see how that went. She's in high school and we interviewed her. Trust me, it's a thing. The only way to stop the further aggression is to get Zelensky and Putin and maybe some other neutral parties to come to an agreement. They're not going to do it. But like what happened on Friday, like that's the problem is I think Zelensky knows that he's not going to get what he wants. And he really wants what he wants. But he's not going to get it. And so I think that's kind of why it came across. I understand that some people are like, well, he wasn't making demands, he was pleading. And I was like, yes and no, but like there's a difference between telling America that like they're going to feel the pressure. Like it also comes across as like this is going to happen if you don't help us. And it's like, well, I'm trying to broker peace so that doesn't happen. And then, kind of whining like, well, you're just lucky because you got an ocean and all this. And it's like, okay, that doesn't change the fact that we don't want you to be annihilated. We want to help, but you're also being kind of a little shit right now about it. So let's talk about it, or let's both have a temper tantrum. Well, they both decide to have a temper tantrum, as two narcissists would. They're political leaders of nations. That's going to happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen in the future. I'd like to see them come together and have some other people there and come to a peaceful resolution. But I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. I don't know, and I think that's where Trump is struggling, because he knows that without us, peace probably isn't going to happen, and without the U.S., they're going to be annihilated a lot faster. But even with us, they're still going to face annihilation, and it just sucks for them. So, okay, JC Pro Mortalist. So yeah, if you see people online and they're going super left and super right, and they're going like they're just being crazy about it, maybe reach out to them and kind of help them reel it in just a little bit, because it's just not realistic to think that it's as simple as Trump just wants to be Russia's, fuck buddy, and Zelensky is the truest free world leader in the world. It's just not that simple. And to try to be so reductionist and try to make it that simple is just it's an affront and an abomination to the people that have given their lives on both sides. Like even the soldiers on the Russian side, like if you've ever watched any of the videos on like Funker 350 or anything like that, like soldiers that are on the front line, conscripts, even people that volunteer, like nobody wants to go die for their country. They're willing to, but nobody wants to. Like war sucks. It really, really, really sucks. And if you haven't seen it up close and personal, because I have, it sucks. So I know that the people on that front line, I know there's a bunch of like propaganda and social media, like Ukraine's like, yeah, we're here fighting for, like I get that, but I guarantee you those dudes don't want to fight anymore. They're willing to, but they don't want to. And it's certainly not affecting Putin. So, like, keep that in mind. Like when it's actual like organized militaries, the people that are on the front lines, they're still people. They're following orders. They might agree with that ideology to a certain degree, but that's the role that they're in, and so it kind of sucks for them. And we need to remember that. I think it's a little different when we're talking about terrorists, whatever, but Anyways, uh, today I called my gun range and they told me I can't get a rental for the range because they're out of stock and it's the only gun range in my city. Bro, what can I do? Uh, Buy a gun? sorry, sorry. I'm not trying to sound like super insensitive. Um, if it's the only range in your city and they're out of stock, are they out of stock of guns or out of stock of ammo? It does. It sucks, James. It really does. Like I've been to Europe a couple times. Um, I've made some really good friends on deployments and stuff that I've been on from other countries, and it sucks knowing that they are more affected by this. And I know that, like truthfully, most of the people on the ground, and when I say on the ground, just like regular dudes like me, whether they're a sergeant or a captain, if it's a pilot or whatever, like yes, we get excited in the sense to like to be able to show our craft. Like a fighter pilot trains to be really good at doing one thing, and that's blowing shit up and killing bad guys in the air and on the ground. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to learn to do. Do they want to do it? I think they I don't think they want to take life. I think they are I think they to a degree like they want the opportunity to be able to like use that lethality in a way that it's meant to, to protect others, to defend others. But I think beyond that, and the same with like stuff that I've done, like it's never nobody ever like I shouldn't say nobody because there are weirdos that go like I want to join the Marines or I want to be a cop or I want to do this. I'm not trying to single out the Marines, that's just what came out. Freudian slip. Um, but like the people that want to have that power. But for the most part, I think the people, especially here in the US, that join the military, they join the military out of a sense of duty and honor to do the right thing. And yeah, they get some benefits out of it. They learn some skills, but it's to do the right thing. And like it's kind of scary when you actually have to do the thing you're trained to do. Like in a real world scenario. When there's real repercussions, it kind of sucks. Um, I was in AFCENT. I'll say that. I was in AFCENT. I was based out of Qatar, but I've been to a couple of places there. So I was based in Qatar, but I've been to a couple places there. So I'll say that. Um, okay, so JC, you can't rent a gun. What are you in a state where you can buy a gun? Sorry, I know that sounds like a really dumb question. I know I think we've talked a couple times in the past. Are you in a state where you can buy a gun? If my internet, okay, I was gonna say if my internet just pooped out on me. I appreciate that everybody's like been engaged and let me kind of rant because I was pretty pissed. I read some stuff, but this is a much healthier outlet than just posting things randomly and being ignored. I'm guessing you're in a blue type state. Is that correct? You don't have to tell me which one. Just what you're describing sounds like a very blue type state. Andy, I'm pretty sure you're being. Oh, um, I don't know anything about. I don't know what are the laws in Namibia. Are there any stipulations on what kind of guns you can own in Namibia? And do you have to do they have to be registered, or are you just allowed to own guns? And then what is it kind of like the U.S. where once you own it, like you own it, and nobody really questions it? I'm asking, are you allowed to do a private gun sale, or does it have to be from a gun shop in Namibia? Oh, hey Alex, welcome to the stream. I just bought a new gun, a Smith and Wesson SD40 VE. Cool, it's a cool gun. I have a Smith and Wesson. This pistol behind my shoulder is Smith and Wesson. The one in the middle, but mine's a 9mm. It's cool. SD40s are cool. JC, if you have to buy it from a gun shop and you have to wait 12 months, man. Yeah, I am. I will never advocate for anyone to. I will never advocate for anyone to break the law, especially regarding their right to own and exercise firearm ownership. Not going to do that. The only thing I can tell you is that really sucks. I feel for you. Uh, do you have plans to move? I know that sounds awful. I know that's not easy to say because I live in a country where, deciding to get up and move it's a big decision, but it's not like it's not out of the realm of options. Um, get a friend to pick it up. Yeah, are you allowed to like borrow a friend's gun and go shoot at the gun store, um, the gun range? If not, if owning and possessing firearms and that's part of who you are and it's important to you, and you don't agree with the laws that you have to live under, like that really sucks to say. Because yeah, that would. I have told people. I mean, I've told people in my stream, even here in the U.S. Um, dude, if what you want is not going to be provided to you and it's not going to be realistic option, where you are, is it worth looking at what it's going to take? It might take longer to move. Like if you lived in a blue state, if you lived in a blue state in the U.S., let's say California, there's so many steps, or Colorado is an even better example because of all that. Um, yeah, some in U.S. politics and U.S. terminology, a blue state is a state that is, um, it's primarily a state that is led by Democrat policies. In the U.S., there's two major parties. There's the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republican Party tends to be more pro-gun, and the Democrat Party, the Republicans tend to be what's called the red side, and the Democrats tend to be the blue side. Um, they're more the supporters of like um, anti-gun things and gun control, whereas the Republicans are more. You know, you have the right to bear arms, you have the right to own guns, things like that. So when I say the terms red state or blue state, I'm talking about pro gun or less pro gun, because I don't want to say that all blue states are inherently anti-gun. There are some that definitely are, but they're not inherently anti-gun. I don't want to be a reductionist in that sense. So, but I've had friends and people on my streams that live in those countries, and I'm like, okay, so it takes 6 months or whatever, and you have to follow all these rules and do these certifications and all these things to own a gun. Realistically, if you don't want to go through that every time you're there, outside of like maybe your immediate family and your job, what is keeping you in that blue state? And is it worth looking at how to build a new life outside of that state where you can exercise your freedom more? You're in a different country, and I don't know what all the laws of emigration out or into other countries is and what you contribute to that as a private citizen. Like, but it's one of those things that I encourage people. I would encourage people. Like I've had people from the UK that I'm like, dude, move to America. I'm not saying that like, oh, you can just do it, but like, if you don't like what you are dealing with and what you're currently having to live by and where your country and stuff is doing, find out if there's a way to leave. What does it take? And is it realistic? How old are you, JC? Are you under 30? Because you could always army and earn my citizenship. You think I'm joking, but you could always try it. It sounds silly, but stranger things have happened. If you speak English, you speak any other languages, that could be a benefit to the U.S. And there might be a way for you to do that. Be like, I would like to join the United States military. I know that's like extreme, but there are people that do it, and it's you know my stepdad was a missionary. He was a Mormon missionary in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and he spoke Afrikaans. So, and I don't speak any, but no, that's cool. I think that's something that could be, use that to your advantage. Like, I know that it's really hard for African countries to get things. Join the military. It sounds dumb. You could join your military, or try to join the U.S. military. Say, I would like to be a soldier. I know that we have in the Army and the Marines, there are lots of dudes from other countries. So, so um, I need to go look at her car so that I know what she actually needs. Because if her rotors are good, then obviously that changes things. Sorry, a buddy of mine and I are we're trying to help a lady who's we're going to work together, try to fix her car. It's her rear brakes are pretty jacked up, so it's a neighbor and co-worker of my wife, so we're trying to help her out. We're just trying to coordinate. Sometimes he was asking me when we'd be available. Yeah, that is that's a tough situation to be in, bud. I I I don't know what that's like, but dude, you know, and I'll say this to anybody in any country. I would love for you to come to our country. I actually am a big proponent of legal immigration. I love being an American. As much as I know that it's it's this bombastic, crazy thing. I've been to lots of other countries, and I am not exaggerating. Like, if you've not really been outside of the US and you're an American citizen, I highly encourage you to like find a way to travel at some point. I've had the blessing of being in the military, um, and being able to travel because of that. But I've seen, like, when people talk about the poorest of the poor in America, they have no idea. We live in a country where the poorest of the poor can still be obese because they have that much food and they have that many benefits that our country gives them. This is the greatest nation on the planet. I know a lot of people disagree. It's not perfect, but if you want a better life, figure out how to come here legally. Seriously, JC, go online and, and message a recruiter from the United States Army and just tell them, I am in Namibia and I want to move to America and I want to join the military. I'm 21, I like guns, and I know how to shoot. And I would love to be in the Army. See what they can do. They might say, go talk to an embassy. But see what they can do. If you want to make it happen, I am a firm believer that anybody can make it happen. And dude, if you decide to come here and and you're able to do it, and if you're able to join the military, I want you to reach out to me because I will go to your swearing in. I will make it happen. I'll be there, and I'll have my dad, who's a retired commissioned officer, or one of my buddies or my brother-in-law who are also commissioned officers. I'm not commissioned. Um, Show up, and if you're able to, like, dude, I'll have one of them do your swearing in if you can make it happen. So I'm glad I could. Corey, I love you, bud, because you're loyal. But man, sometimes I think I might punch you in the face. So yeah, you can reach out. You can also join the Discord, man, and reach out. There's a bunch of people that are on there. There's a bunch of things. Let me know. That goes for anybody that is not a citizen of the U.S. If you are of a young enough age and you want to be an American citizen and have the freedoms that we have, if you want to play with pews, whatever, it sounds stupid, but probably one of the easiest things to do. If you, JC, if you go to my landing page, I have all of my links to all my social media there. You can always contact a United States Army or Air Force or Marine Corps recruiter, and there is a pretty high probability that they will go out of their way to try to help you. It is a beaut. It's Chinese. It's a Chinese AK. It's one of the few things that are made in China that I am a firm supporter and believer that it's very good quality. Dude, like, power to you. Go for it. Find a way to make it better. I can't touch it at all. Can't even come close to it on a live stream. I'm surprised that like being as close as I was just now that they didn't like shut me down. So, all right. I was not expecting to do like 2 45-minute, 1 hour long live streams. But I am going to go ahead and I'm going to end this live stream. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you want to see a little bit more about what my channel's about, like obviously this was a very politically motivated stream. Most of the time it's not like this. We touch on it a little bit. I have, but it was so like minuscule compared to the last one. Later, JC. Compared to the last one, it probably didn't seem like it did, but I definitely swore like at least 3 times. The last, it was just spread out, and it was kind of like a little bit more controlled and quiet. The last stream obviously was way more. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and end this stream. I gotta charge my phone. And I'm gonna have to go start picking up kids from school and things pretty soon. Go check out my videos. If you or people you know, if you think that they would like the content or kind of like the way that this conversation went, hit the like button, share some of my videos, subscribe. Oh, dude, don't even get me started on healthcare and food. It's supposed to be gun tube. It's supposed to be gun tube, not politics tube. When politics comes into it, this was one of those like, this is an outlier. It's an outlier, Corey. Anyways, thanks for sticking around, listen to my rant. Thanks for engaging in the conversation. Go out there, engage with people. Just remember that like it's a terrible situation that's going on in Ukraine and with Russia, and we should all be advocating for a peaceful solution and an end to the loss of life, and trying to blame anyone but Russia for starting the problem. And I know that Trump said what he did. That was not his best moment. I'm not even going to say that that he was like misspoken. I think he just flat out just said something to say it. I drink a gallon of seed oils every morning to help me get large. I'm like Gaston, but with seed oils, Corey. Hey, Flora, we're actually getting ready to shut down this stream. But if you want to watch like the first 10 minutes of it, or the first 10 minutes of the other one that I did like an hour and a half ago, my stream got all bad, so I had to restart on this one. It's one of the few times you're gonna hear me swear a lot, and like not little swears, like really big swears, like 4 or 5 times. We were talking about Russia and Ukraine, and just the absolute like mind-numbing moronic idiocy that the interwebs have and the people on the left and on the right have, and not being a little bit more nuanced about the fact that it sucks, and anything outside of finding a peaceful solution is not really a solution. It's just a band-aid that will still lead to the end result of Ukraine losing. So if you want to check that out, you can. I'll probably still be on later tonight. This was just kind of a middle of the day, needed to get it out of my head because it was bugging me. I wasn't gonna be able to focus on work anyways, so I figured I'd voice my frustrations to the interwebs and the people of YouTube. So I appreciate your time. Give me a like and a share if you don't mind. You can subscribe if you want, but I tried to have fun, and I tried not to be pro either side. I tried to just be, look, this is the reality of it. And I think that's hard for people to do because they don't want to come across as like, they don't want to come across as an opponent to their ideology. And this is one of the few times you need to stop sucking on either cock, and you need to just accept that like there's a better solution. So anyways, you guys have a good rest of your day. I hope the rest of your week is great. I tried to provide you all a good motivational video this morning. Only about 500 people liked it. That's okay. It's fine. It had bacon and it had guns. So if bacon and guns is something you're into, you might want to check it out. You guys have a good day, and I'll see you later.